So I've got a 2005 F350 here. Story was they had put some injectors in it, and I guess it ran okay for a couple of days, and it started running like crap. So they decided I needed to take a look at it. So they hauled it over here, and when they got it over here, they drove it up on the trailer. But when they got it here, it wouldn't start, and they had a tilt deck trailer, and they rolled it off there and pushed it in here. And I went out there a little bit later and checked, he thought it had dead batteries. And I'm like, well, you put injectors in, it's probably hydrolocked. So I went out there with a wrench and, I couldn't turn the engine, but it felt pretty solid to me at that point, and I'm like, well, was there a nut in the intake dropped in there? I mean, I didn't know at that point. So I got it in here and I really started looking it over really good. And I saw, that the exhaust manifold was wet, and especially in the around cylinder number 8. So okay, well, I'll pop that valve cover off of there, and I pretty much knew what I was going to find, and I did. And so what we had going on was you can see how black this is. This should be the same color as this. We've had the copper washer is gone. It's in pieces in there. I'm gonna have to shop vac it out of there, and it did actually burn through the lower washer. So on these, wow, it's all swelled up too. The fuel comes in right here. There's 3 screened openings that feed the supply fuel to the injectors through I guess you'd call it a rail, a gallery that goes through the head, feeds the fuel to these, and then these 2 O-rings seal that in there. And you put these in and got to hold down on them, torque them down, and it holds them in there. And the copper washer has a little bit of crush to it, so it seals the combustion. Well, this was loose, so of course it's working a little bit. I'm exaggerating, but it's working a little bit in there. And finally, it's blowing combustion up in here, making this all black, and finally it ate through this O-ring and is pushing combustion, up into the fuel system, making it run like shit. And not only that, with the fuel pressure coming in, now it can just run down into the cup. And the cup runs on these. The cup runs from this point right here, to here. This is where your cup is. The rest of this doesn't sit in the cup. This part sits in the head, where there's a gallery that runs through there, and then this bore is machined into it, and it cuts into the gallery, and that's where your fuel supply comes from. So this thing's working, and fuel pump is running, fuel supply pump. And so whenever you key it up, you're pushing fuel out of that broken O-ring, and it's running down into your cylinder, because by this point this thing's up in the bore. This thing's not tight, of course, filling the cylinder up full of fuel. So what happens there also is, my oil level is over full, so I got to change the oil in it, and get that fuel out of there. And now I got to clear the cylinder out, and I also have, because of the way the manifold sits on there, I've got fuel in it, which is going to come out an exhaust valve when the exhaust, if it's sitting there with the exhaust valve open, that fuel's going to run right out the exhaust valve and start filling up the exhaust manifold. So I'll have to, I don't know, probably maybe pull the exhaust manifold off, because the way it sits, there's still going to be fuel in there, and I would like to get all that fuel out of there. I'll see if I can clear it out, and then I'll turn it to where the exhaust manifold or the exhaust valve is open. I'll let it sit for a minute and see if I, pull the injector back out and see if I can get any more fuel out of there, because I want to make sure that I don't have any of the fuel in there, when I start it, because it's going to smoke and it might, rev up and all that crap. So what we're going to do is go ahead and pull the other side off, because I did check a couple of more injectors and they were not tight at all. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them out, inspect the O-rings, and inspect the copper washer, and then I'll re-O-ring them, new copper washer, put them back in, and torque them. So we got 2 different torques here. These torque to 24 foot-pounds. These are the T40 bolts. The later ones have a T45, and they torque to 26 foot-pounds. So real important that you torque these. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a case of just forgetting to do one. I mean, you know, you can be messing with your friends and putting injectors in and, you know, not realize you forgot to torque number 8. But, you know, finding all 3 of the others, you know, 2, 4, and 6 also loose, you know, tells me that likely the ones on the other side, 1 through 7, are going to be loose too. So I've got to pull that side off and check those. So real important, torque these. They should have just brought it to me first, because, you know, I mean, they know who I am. They could have brought it over here. I would have thrown I mean, you can bring me the injectors. I'm not going to guarantee the injectors. They'll come with their own guarantee, but I'll guarantee you they're not going to pop out, you know, when I do them. So now, not only did you have all that fun putting them in and then, you know, putting the thing on a trailer and, you know, getting it over here, now you have to pay me to do the job that you've already done. So, you know, sometimes it makes more sense just to have somebody do it that, you know, knows what they're doing. So anyway, I'll have this, I'll come back when I get this thing running. I have no idea what it runs like. I do see that it has, let's do a little quick inspection on this thing. It belongs to a kid, of course. So there's some hacked up stuff. I need to replace, I'll need to helicoil that bolt there. That one there stripped out for the valve cover, of course. Looks like it's got a new turbo on it. But we've got, let's go look at this. So we've got that going on too. So, and I wonder if it has a muffler on it. Let's see. Nope. Hey, it does have a cat, but it doesn't have a muffler. It looks like about a 5-inch pipe. It goes from that to a 5-inch pipe. I'll bet that thing's noisier than shit. But anyway, we'll get these. Yeah, it's got a new turbo on it. Nice. We'll get that straightened out. Get any stripped out holes fixed so that it's right, and then fire it up. See how it runs. So hopefully it runs good, because I'll probably, after I get this done, it's going to be after I get it all back together, I'll see if I'd like to do a relative compression test on it, but I can't really do that if it's going to have any extra fuel in a cylinder at all, because it's going to flag that, you know, it'll flag that cylinder, because it's going to, every time it comes up, it's going to slow down, you know, because it's trying to compress that fuel that's in there that's not igniting, you know, while you're cranking it. But oh well, I'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah, we had some of this going on too. I left that unhooked, like I always do if I'm gonna park something in the shop. I don't think that's fused anywhere that I can see. It looks like it runs down. Oh yeah, we got it all bunched up down there. So yeah, so, you know, when I see shit like that, I'm gonna leave it unplugged, because I don't want to burn all my shit down, because, you know, you're an idiot and don't fuse anything and then do shit like that down there. So let me get this thing, get all these injectors out of here, get them all O-ringed, blow the shit out of the cylinder back there, put it back together, and we'll fire it up and see how it runs. So we got these injector O-rings replaced on 2, 4, 6, and I'm going to put number 8 in, which is the one that we had the problem with. I cleaned it all up, put new copper washer. I shot back the cylinder out, blew the rest of the fuel out of it. We're going to put this one in, and then what I want to do is I want to do I want to bump the starter over, because I want to see how it sounds, you know, the cranking cadence. It's kind of a listen, you know, compression or, you know, cylinder relative compression. Basically, if there's anything going on with the cylinder, you know, if it's got a leaking valve or something like that. Before I put it all back together, I'm going to tear the other side apart too and re-O-ring those. But I just want to make sure we don't have any valves leaking. I want to make sure that it has a nice even cranking cadence, which is just kind of a, you know, when you listen to these things for so many years, I know what they should sound like when they're cranking. So if there's anything going on compression wise, you know, I'll be able to pick that up. I may hear a little bit of a bump because there may be a little bit of fuel in that rear cylinder. But we'll put this in, we'll see what it sounds like. Okay. So you never use a power tool on these injectors. You should always put them in by hand because, you know, if you cross thread them or whatever. So don't do what I'm doing here. Perfect. If you're really careful, you can do it with confidence, but you know, if you're a beginner, you probably shouldn't. I mean, I'm sure an engineer would have a shit fit seeing you do that, but I've been doing it for, you know, almost 20 years, so I don't really give a shit. I always make sure I click them at least 2 or 3 times just to make sure. So, and that feels good. So I got that injector in there. Let's bump that starter over and see what it sounds like. Okay, the sound I'm hearing there is, you know, compressing fuel. You know, that little, it's not actually speeding up, it's slowing down. So I'm not worried about that. This thing sounds great. If I had any issue with a valve seal, it would be speeding up when it hit that cylinder. But it's obviously slowing down. You can hear the starter strain every time it hits that. So when you have a leaky valve or a hole in a piston or something like that, it's gonna be a totally different sound. So I'm happy with that. It sounds good. So I'm gonna finish putting this side back together, and then we'll pop the other valve cover off and pull all those injectors out. We'll put new O-rings on them, inspect them. You know, they might be okay, but since these were all loose, I mean, these look fine over here. I didn't see any leakage, but you know, I mean, I got to pull the valve cover off anyway, and it's just going to be a few more minutes to you know, go ahead and pop the O-rings out, or the injectors out, and re-O-ring them. Just, you know, I want to make sure that we're not going to have any kind of an issue like that, because I'm 100% sure that they're loose anyway, so we got to take that apart. So let me do that, and I'll see if I can get this thing fired up here and smoke the shop out, you know, on a Friday afternoon. So I'll get that done, come right back. So we got our 2005 with the loose injectors all squared away. It's got about 2 gallons of fuel in the exhaust system, which is going to be pretty smoky to burn all that out of there, but I'll do that tomorrow. But let's see how it runs. Just like that. Need to change the oil in it because it had a lot of fuel in the oil. I saw it on the stick. So do that tomorrow, and then go drive it, get the exhaust hot, make big clouds of smoke, piss everybody off. But it'll be ready to ship after that. So torque your injectors, or you know, you're gonna have these problems. So anyway, it was a self-inflicted problem, but I took care of it for them, and life will go on now. So I guess in thinking about it, on that on the loose injectors, you know, I'm happy to see that kids are willing to dive in and do this stuff nowadays, because, you know, honest to God, we had a 22-year-old kid come in here, and he wanted help changing his tire, and he had everything he needed. So of course sent Diane out there, and she changed his tire for him. You know, and I'm like, Jesus, what the hell's going on in this world? Well, the problem is they're not teaching any of these kids in school anything of any value, you know, to go learn how to I mean, hell, I taught myself, you know, how to use a computer, and I can always figure it out. I don't really need to call anybody to figure it out. um, you know, computer skills are not going to always keep you employed. You know, there are jobs, you know, that you get out of. I guess what I'm trying to say, if you want to make real money when you get out of high school and not waste your money going to college and becoming indoctrinated into Marxism, and you know, have to deal with you know, snowflakes who freak out over Trump hats, and you know, everybody's a fucking racist, and you know, all that horse shit, then get out of high school and go to a trade school and learn one of the trades, and you will always work, because these other snowflakes out there are, you know, they can be fired. And Twitter is a good example. You know, Elon Musk took it over, and then you have all these crying crybaby snowflakes that are, oh my God, I'm losing my job. You know, those people can be fired because basically they're worthless. You know, they get just the amenities that they had, you know, you know, they don't deserve any of that shit because they're a bunch of idiots, you know, for one thing. And the other thing is they're just worthless human beings, and that's what these schools are turning out. And you know, the vast majority of these kids, and then they go to college, and you know, they become indoctrinated into Marxism, and then they come out here and they vote Democrat, and then we have homeless people all up and down the I-5 corridor because, you know, hey, I think we should legalize drugs, you know, not penalize people for this, and then we'll get them help. Well, you son of a bitches closed down all the help for these people. You know, there aren't any mental institutions around anymore to speak of, and you know, to try to get somebody in one of those places and get them some help is like pulling teeth. So all of the shit that you're learning is just shit. If you want to learn something, go to a trade school and actually learn something, and you will always have a job. You'll always be working. And then you can laugh at all these other idiots. Oh, your BMW's broke down. Ha ha ha, you idiot. You know, you just keep going. So there you go.